Hello.
Good evening again, Graham. Good evening again, Anthony. We're at attempt number two, Wednesday night, and
We shouldn't have told the listeners that. We should just pretend it was attempt number one. In fact, this is attempt number one.
that
If you
will
can,
be
if you
strictly
can have,
true.
if you can have three prime ministers in a single
In no
year, you
time
can
at
have
all.
two attempts at doing a podcast.
Yeah, well, I hope it lands more successfully than recent missiles across into Poland. But anyway, we move on from that world to domestic scenarios that may be troubling us, and we started looking at this last week, I think, in terms of the agreements in funding that have been given through the NPO funding to by the Arts Council England, and we're looking at probably a little bit more distance now from it, maybe seeing the overall trend with it, if you like. And the words that they've used, the Arts Council England have used, has been that dreaded government term, levelling up.
Yeah, well, that gives the game away. That shows how much politics is involved in the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, within it, so here's the one defense story within it. New money is being allocated to new companies, or money is being allocated to new companies under the levelling up process. But listening to Richard Mantell from Opera North, general manager Opera North, and an interesting interview that he's just done this early evening with BBC Radio 4, and looking at, if you like, what the impact of the idea that the English National Opera should move north to Manchester, how that might have an impact on Opera North, the one national scale opera company that operates in the north from Leeds. And Richard was saying, well, let's not look at it as competition. There is room for both. Much more concerning, though, he said, is overall the way that money is being removed from opera companies at large, and how opera overall is very much going to suffer under this. And
yeah, well,
so
sorry,
the
Charles.
Graham, is because.
Well, the whole point is that, if you've got a football club and you sell three of your best players, but you buy one new player, and then you advertise it to the fans as, hurrah, we've got one new player, the fans don't go, that's great, we'll ignore the three players you've sold. They go, wait a minute, you've sold three players and the best players. So this is a complete bunch of spin, which the media, because the media never takes that seriously unless you're the arts correspondent, the media has let happen. It's basically defunding of arts organisations, which includes Harrogate Theatre, by the way. And
Yes.
it doesn't matter how many new grants have been given to organisations which previously didn't get grants. It doesn't get away from the fact that perfectly respectable or very good arts organisations and venues have had the grant removed. So the whole thing, and to say that it's just levelling up, is just massive amount of spin. And I know it's easy to have a go at this government, so let's carry on doing it.
Well, I think that's a fair point. I mean, I do believe that it's important to encourage new artistic endeavors, but I think when a judgment does not seemingly come down to whether a company that's been successfully applying for grants for years should suddenly not be given them, on the grounds, instead of being, well, you're not doing a good job anymore, it just appears to be, well, English National Opera, we're just going to make it much more difficult for you by removing I think it was it 19 million a year to being 17 million in 3 years, and please move north to Manchester, which has a huge impact on the Colosseum as well, where 500,000 people go to see opera. I mean, that's a massive number of people. It's another reason people actually go to London to watch brilliant quality opera. And I don't buy into opera being elitist overall.
Well, it's a bit like saying you've got a championship football team in your town.
Yeah.
And for some strange reason, Chelsea have to relocate to your town.
Yeah.
Well, that's great if you're a Chelsea fan, live in your town. But if you're the local football club, you're finished, because most football fans are going to go to see Chelsea, and all the money in local sponsorship and all the media attention is going to go to Chelsea. So if English National Opera moved to Manchester, it would definitely take money and attention and creativity and talent away from Opera North and local organisations. And there was a suggestion that perhaps the English National Opera could move to the new Manchester venue that's being built called Factory International at a cost of
Yes.
£210 million. So it's a huge arts project, Manchester. So
Mm.
some of the government suggested they could move there. Well, first of all, they hadn't checked with the owners of that new venue whether
No,
that was a good idea.
no.
And secondly, people in Manchester said, well, great, if you want to have English National Opera in Factory International, that's
Yeah,
fine, but we do not want traditional opera because we're about being cutting edge and modern, which
yeah,
of course
exactly.
Manchester in general is. So how would English National Opera actually fit into Manchester's vibe anyway? Because Manchester isn't an old fuddy traditional place
No, certainly
where
not.
the church people think to go and see opera. It's modern and cutting edge. So the whole point of this whole suggestion by the government is levelling up, and the English National Opera could move to Manchester or Leeds. I think that was mentioned briefly in passing.
Mm.
The fact they haven't actually looked into it, whether it's actually a feasible suggestion, shows the whole approach, which is they're not really interested. It's just politics. It's nothing to do with understanding the arts or helping
It's
the
also
arts.
misguided politics because it's misguided politics on this in that Opera North already provides opera into Manchester on a scale that is how it should be in Manchester. Manchester is not in desperate need of a whole lot more opera. A few nights at the opera a year is quite enough in Manchester. The
Yeah,
Manchester
yeah, yeah.
scene is not about opera. It's being about one of the most progressive and significant music cities in the world already, but in the field of rock music and electronic music. And that is its great achievement and
Unless it's
continues to be so. And
unless
unless
it's
it's
unless yeah. Carry on. Sorry.
well, I was
Carry
going
on.
to say, I mean, I make the point that opera is now that desperately ENO tries to make opera for everybody. At the same time, there is music there already for everybody in the great world of rock music by Manchester bands. And I think that if you try to impose something on a city that is very good at creating its own culture, that is what is outstanding about Manchester and always has been. When you impose something, it feels false. And I think this is exactly what this is all about.
It's not. It's not even imposed because they haven't got a plan. It's basically it's just and also the fact we're talking about this, and so is the arts world, just plays straight in the hands of the government because rather than the arts world talking about the government making cuts, they're just having discussions about whether they should move to Manchester.
Yeah.
Well, that isn't the point. The point is the government
It's the
is
distraction,
making
isn't
cuts.
it? Yeah.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
the
And I think
distraction
the
from
only
the
way it would
greater
work,
issue at hand.
exactly, if the English National Opera wants to do a new opera about the life story of Ian Curtis called She's Lost Control, I'm sure it would fit perfectly into Manchester, but I don't think that any such opera exists. Although I'm happy
No.
to write the libretto if they want me to.
Now you've even used the word vandalism disguised as levelling up. And that's a strong word, Graham.
Well,
Vandalism.
this is a government which not everything it does is bad, just most things. But what it doesn't like is attention to detail.
Yeah.
It likes to like throw things up. It throws the chips up in the air in the land where they land with no direction from the government. If it has terrible side effects, the government seems to be completely oblivious to that. So that's why it's vandalism because it's the lack of care involved.
Yeah.
It isn't just the fact they've made financial cuts; it's the lack of care and judgment because they're not really interested. And for
Mm.
some warped reason, they think that a bit of chaos and a bit of hardship is good for people. Well, it wouldn't be good for them. They don't like chaos and hardship themselves, but somehow it's
No.
good for someone else. It's just typifies the government's wrong-headed attitude on most things.
Well, that applied to the mini budget then, Graham, as well. The impact of the mini budget, which was largely creating chaos for everybody
Well,
else.
let's look, let's not go back to that for goodness sake. We've also been political enough, I think.
I'm just using that as an example because I think you've highlighted the kind of characteristics, and I'm using the most recent example there that applied to the greater economy at large and the destructive impact that that had on everybody at large.
Wait a minute, you
So,
standing at the next election?
absolutely. So, what
It sounded like a speech for the next election. I thought, oh my
I,
God,
I agree. Now, but
sounds such as an MP.
if one is going to say the counter argument, what should happen to English National Opera, and or what should happen overall, if we're looking at trying to, as the government appears to be arguing, creating opera more for the people by taking it to the people's city, Manchester. If is there any potential good in trying to do something like this, taking things away from London? Let's give the government more credit than either of us wishes to. If there is a greater thinking behind it than merely just throwing a slapdash idea at hand.
Well, I think, Charles, you've balanced the argument very well there. So I'm not going to say anything at all because then it would unbalance what you've already balanced. So let's just keep that balance and then move on.
So you don't feel from what you're saying that actually, well, I've suggested it's not necessary. You are saying it's vandalism. So I think it's fair to say that we don't feel this is a step that is beneficial to opera, nor to Manchester, and certainly not to those who love going to see opera at the Colosseum, one of the great venues to go to if anyone has never been there. So it's a familiar thumbs down, Graham, isn't it?
Well, yeah, if this is Jukebox Jury, it's not going to be a hit.
It's not going to be a hit. Now, Graham, talking of hits, where do you stand on Cher? Do you like Cher?
Cher, the singer.
Mm.
Well, obviously she's got a great voice and has remained famous for 50 years or more, which takes some doing. But apart from that, I'm not really interested.
So I went to the Cher show,
The real
which
Cher
is on at the Grand Opera House, York, a new musical. It's called the Cher Show New Musical.
So Cher's not sharing. Cher's not there.
She's being shared out and shared alike because it's being played by 3 different women. And early on in the piece, when you're getting used to each of them doing the kind of sharing, well, I don't want to call it an impersonation because actually they're trying to make it not like a drag queen impersonation and not even like a kind of direct Cher sound alike. But when all 3 of them are talking in that way that Cher talks, let's think of her when she does an interview or whatever. And it's an unusual speaking voice, let alone an unusual singing voice. So you have to kind of get used to the 3 Chers talking to each other as Cher. I'm not saying it's like the 3 witches becomes the 3, well, to use a favorite word of Cher, the 3 bitches. But there is that thing. It's not just one Cher, 3 Cher. So Babe is one Cher. Then you've got Lady, and then you've got Star. So you've got 3 aspects of her. The young Cher with Sonny Bono, then the sort of early solo years, and then the longer stretch of Cher into the movie world. And the comeback, and now where she is now. So it's a pretty damn spectacular show. It is pretty spectacular.
Are you being paid by the word Cher? So every time you say the word Cher,
so I've taken out shares in Cher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good grief. I'm not sure I can actually handle this much Cher.
You know how much she's now worth, Graham? Even without having obviously.
How much is Cher worth? I would guess 300 million.
Not bad because it's $360 million. So it's extraordinary.
Well, I think if you put that in pounds, that might be a bit closer.
It's got some kind of credence to this musical because you've got Arlene Phillips is directing. Oti Musi has done the choreography, which I think actually is stronger for the 3 leads than it is for the ensemble. And then the designer did all the costume designer did all the costumes for.
What's it called again?
Have you seen 6?
What's it called again?
It's called the Cher musical. Just to use the name Cher again.
So
did you see the musical?
Yeah. Basically, it's an attempt.
Did you see the musical 6?
Did you? Yeah.
I don't
like music.
I think that's a bit unfair. I can see why you could ask that, but I don't think it is. Whereas a jukebox musical, absolutely, they're cash-ins, and you can see the reason why. I knew quite a lot about Cher. I've been to see Cher live at Sheffield, 2000, and I think it would have been 2005 tour.
You saw her live at Sheffield.
I did. So, but I think you do actually learn things about Cher that maybe you didn't know, and I do think that's the duty of a show like this to kind of give. It's not a complete picture, but if you like, the kind of through flow of the ebbs and flows and ups and downs that she's been through, dealing with dyslexia, which is very fashionable now, dealing with dyslexia. Although Matt Hancock hasn't mentioned it once yet, despite his promise to do so on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me In Here. So I don't feel that it's just a cash in. I think it's better than that. And there's a load of humour to it as well. I mean, she's noted for her humour as Cher, and there are plenty of good one-liners within it, plenty of observations that are dry. I did think it probably would, a bit longer than it needed to be, 2.5 hours. But for Cher fans, huge joy, and for those who aren't Cher fans, well, there's enough big hits in there, enough glitz and glamour, and enough humour, and enough pageantry going on in it to make it an enjoyable musical for the week in York.
Yeah, well, it's not. It doesn't float my boat. I'm sure it's a good show, but I'm not really interested.
So that's fair enough. I mean, I don't think it necessarily would be a show to convert you. I'd take that point. It's clearly not in. It's not in your kiss. Clearly, so that's fair enough. But nevertheless, I think it's probably a 3.5 out of 5 type musical. It's probably not stronger than that, but I think
I've
it's
never really recovered from when you and me saw the Jerry and the Pacemaker story at the
that's a
York
fair point. I mean
a long time ago.
now we're looking at a you'll never work again kind of moment that was, wasn't it? So it was
It was just too much Jerry Marsden. So anything that's
well, it
got
was a Jerry
too
Marsden
much
story. What did he
too much
want?
Jerry Marsden. I'm sure if they did a John Lennon musical, and you know how much I love the Beatles, I would
Yeah.
probably think there's too much John Lennon in it. So it's just not my sort of thing.
Well, there's plenty of Cher to share around in this one, that's for
Oh,
sure. So, I mean, I'm clearly, I'm not even, despite my descriptions, I cannot persuade you to go and see this musical. As I say, running at the Grand Opera House all this week and going elsewhere on tour as well. So, Graham, moving on to something that, well, I've not seen Uncut Magazine's top 50 list before you mentioning it as one of the topics for tonight. So I then did look it up, and
right.
and I have also bought Mojo's latest edition, which
I'm
likewise
not
has done
doing
its top
Mojo yet.
50.
I'm only doing Uncut. I didn't want
So,
to conflate the two magazines together because they're a bit different. They're not exactly the same.
well, they are. Although actually, the one that ends up at number one in Mojo is number three in
See,
Uncut, which is Michael Head's
actually
album, which
excited.
I absolutely loved, and we reviewed on an earlier edition of our podcast.
Hmm.
The
Well,
former.
I don't think it was that good, but
I don't think it's.
yeah,
I don't think it's the best album of the year by any means. I think it's actually the best album that he's done this year. Probably it's a. It doesn't need more than that on it, but he's a cult figure, and for some reason, both the magazines have decided perhaps to go over the top. But now, tell me why the high quality, the Arctic Monkeys, the Car album, makes a mockery of Uncut's ridiculous albums of the year choices. Maybe it fell victim to coming quite late in the year. Maybe that is a factor, Graham.
it's just there's no cool points in it for the reviewers on those magazines to make
Mm.
Arctic Monkeys album of the year. But I think it is. If it's not album of the year, it's blooming close. It's definitely top 5 of the year because it's a great album, and it's so classy and sophisticated and tuneful and subtle and understated and brilliantly performed and intelligent. It's just a great album. But there's nothing in it because they're not a new band. They've got their fans. That's it. It's not going to be a huge selling album because it's actually too sophisticated for the Arctic Monkeys' own audience in general. So there's nothing in it for those magazines to support it. So they're happy to put them on the front cover to sell some magazines. But
Which they did last month.
so, for example, Uncut's top 75. I mean, it's got albums like Slade's Autofiction, which is at 54.
Yeah.
It's got Yard Act, The Overload at 61.
Yeah.
It's got Father John Misty, Clothing the Next 20th Century at 56. And these are all very, very good albums with very good songwriting, but they're way down. But instead, you've got Rolling Blackouts Coastal Fever from Australia at 41, who quite frankly are a good band, but that's it. They're just a jingly jangly guitar band of old. You got Ty Segall, his Hello Hi albums at number 40. Well, he's quite a character. And you got to imagine his garage band, small time ethos, but he doesn't write brilliant songs.
No.
In my humble opinion. And you got someone called Cass McCombs, 25 with Heartmind. And these are albums which are nowhere near as good as the albums that are lower down.
I mean, Cass McCombs' album was made album of the month in Uncut earlier in the year, so they're kind of backing up their own judgment at that time.
If you take away Kendrick Lamar's album, Uncut Magazine generally rewards acoustic music.
Yeah.
And music that's Americana, and music that's a bit country, and music that's a bit rootsy. Yeah. It's almost like if Uncut Magazine had been around the 1970s, it would have defined the 1970s as Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, John Martin. And that would have been it. But as we know,
well, interestingly, Graham, an album that you've looked at in detail on more than one episode, the offshoot from Radiohead, the Smiles album, made with Tom Skinner from, you remind me which band Tom Skinner's from.
Might be It's one of those great British jazz bands, but I might be wrong.
And that album has made the number one spot, I think, in Uncut. So what do you read into that?
I think they want to get Radiohead on their cover of the next issue. Because the Smile album is a very interesting album, but it's better. Some of the songs are very good, and obviously there's nothing terrible on it. But it's really great because of the instrumentation and the feel and the interplay between the different members of the band. That's what's good about it. It's musically rich and adventurous, but they're not great songs. If that had been a Radiohead album, it would not be regarded as one of the great Radiohead
No,
albums.
exactly.
It hasn't got enough classic songs in it. Nowhere near. So for that to be album of the year, again, it's like, why? I don't understand it. But then again, I first complained about magazines' albums of the years about 1973 when I got the Enemy Christmas edition. I used to go, oh my good God, have you seen what's number 10? When I was about 10. So
Well,
I do enjoy criticizing magazines.
You do, but you haven't yet got Mojo, but I think you'll be delighted to know the following.
All right.
Slade's auto fiction, which you have praised to the hilt, number 6.
No, that's good.
And Arctic Monkeys, number 5.
That's good as well.
Fontaine's DC's Skinty Fear, number 10. So these are albums that all of which you've given pretty enthusiastic reference to. And I think most significant of all, I'd like to mention, is at number 3, an album that you've said people really must discover, Danger Mouse and Black Thought, the Cheat Codes album out on BMG.
Wait a minute, this
is their number 3 choice. So
this is sounding very much like the Mojo magazine has actually listened to our podcast. That's what they've done. They've gone, okay, what's going to be the top 10?
Yeah.
Let's listen to Graham Sharp's and Charles Dickens. Too big use a small car. They'll be the answers for us, I'm sure.
Well, I obviously analysed the Wet Leg album, Wet Leg, which has come in at number 2 there, which I think is overrating it. I think the great early singles from that band. Not so sure it's been followed up with the rest of the songs being on that level by any means. Dry Cleaning, who I actually prefer, their Stump Work, their new album is in at number 9. Jack White, who's always going to be in the Mojo list, is at number 8. And Bill Callahan from Smog, who always has to be in their top 10. He's in their top 10. There's a slight frustration, therefore, that they tend to each year come up with the same musicians in Mojo.
Well, Bill Callahan, I mean, as much as I like Smog, and as much as I've got a couple of Bill Callahan albums, and as much as he lived as a young man in Knaresborough, near Harrogate, so it's
he did, didn't he? Well remembered.
Well, as much as that's so true, but it doesn't give us the fact every Bill Callahan album sounds almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reviewer eating a bit more pop. So you buy the album, you discover it sounds almost identical to the previous Bill Callahan album. So he's a classy individual and he's good. But it'd be like if Joy Division had carried on and Ian Curtis hadn't died and they'd done 15 albums and every single album they did sound like Unknown Pleasures. I wouldn't like Joy Division now.
No.
So Callahan hasn't turned rubbish, but he could do with like venturing out beyond his very long comfort zone.
It's not going to happen.
No, we know that, don't we?
Ryan Adams, on the other hand, how many albums do you think Ryan Adams has made this year?
4.
He has. He's made 4 albums this year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is remarkable in its own way. All ignored, largely. I mean, I don't think I've seen reviews of them anywhere at all. So what's going on? I know he's obviously persona non grata because of certain, which we won't go into, but certain, things that have been complaints that have been put against him about behaviour. Shall we just leave it as that?
I think we should.
I don't think we should go into it further than that. But so 4 albums by Ryan Adams, totally ignored in the lists of albums of the year.
Yeah, but once you're out of that camp, that little circle of like admiration from the critic, it's very hard to get back in. And the way you get out of that camp in the first place is either you stop selling as many copies, or your quality level drops, or you change direction away, which the critics don't like, and then you can spend an eternity getting back in the good books. It's happened to loads of acts over the years. Sometimes deservedly, because some acts do go off the boil. Sometimes no merit to whatsoever. So, as a man who's not a massive Ryan Adams fan, I've got no idea if he's kept his quality control high. And deserves to be out of the circle of trust, whether he's still producing good stuff. I've got no idea. Do you know?
Well, I'm currently waiting to go and buy about 15 albums I've got my eyes on, but none of them I can afford right now. So there's a delay in Hutchinson actually getting to listen to certain new acts that he would like to listen to right now, or new albums that he'd like to listen to. So, frustratingly, Ryan Adams, I wouldn't dream perhaps getting all four, but I would be curious to probably get a couple of they're all studio releases, but I think the ones that are there's obviously there's a couple that's quite slapdash basically, but so probably would ignore those. But
Well,
I think it's a
well,
very interesting point that once you're out of the kind of circle of trust, and that does happen to acts, and it's difficult for them to, and that again I think is one of the limitations of these choices is that you could almost predict each year's largely with Mojo about 50% of what's going to be in there you can predict. Now that might be because we both pick up Mojo and Uncut regularly, so we have an instinct for what they're going to mention. But I still think that one of the joys should be not deliberate point scoring with unnecessary trendiness, but there should also be room for discovery within albums of the year lists, I think.
Well, yeah, they do that, but they tend to pick on strange, obscure things which aren't particularly pleasant to listen to. So, but you always throw in some curveballs. I mean, Uncut loves Wilco, and it loves Richard Dawson, neither of which I particularly love. No. And nothing seems to put them from their devotion to those two acts, especially Wilco, who I think are possibly
Cruel Country, which I've ended up having to just to listen on Spotify, is a fantastic album. Let me tell you, it's so frustrating. You can't get it in the bloody shops at all, but it is a fantastic album. So I think I would back their judgment on that. I think it's the best Wilco album in a long, long time.
Yeah, well, there's a great divide between us and Americana because in general, I only like a bit of Americana. It has to be very melodic. And in general, you like Americana.
I do. I bought, Drive By Truckers album I bought this year, obviously. And a big thumbs up again for that as ever. Mid-Lakes album, I haven't yet heard, but you're right. I mean, it's a bit of a, I guess there aren't crossroads in the world of Americana. There are those who want to make decisions and turn left and right a bit in their music joys. And I think I'm one of those Americana converts who will just keep going on the same route forever and ever. I won't have that Tom Hanks at the crossroads moment about discovering something else. But there are others who give up, only dabble in it, and even then, very rarely. Well, we will later in the year, Graham, just to plug our own albums of the year list. We will look forward to doing that because that will be a joy. And well, we'll try to not annoy ourselves.
Our list will be correct. That's the important thing to mention, Charles.
Well, we've already seen just how Mojo has already ripped us off largely. Now, I feel that the other topic here is perhaps this is one for the dedicated listeners who will know that Graham likes his Thursday night film club, and I'm assuming that you've been rewatching Lucky Jim. Would that be right?
Well, yeah, Lucky Jim came out in 1957 by John Bolton, one of the Bolton brothers, who made so many great black and white satirical British comedies, very relevant at the time in the 1950s. And it was like the film version of what had been a massive hit for Kingsley Amis, the 1954 novel of the same name. And it's obviously a black and white film, and it looks very old-fashioned. The way they dress is very 1950s and very dour, and people's manners are all a bit more restrained and a bit more stiff upper lip, and the comedy's all a bit more sort of like frivolous, childish rebellion. So at first you think, what is this old-fashioned semi-tosh set in a provincial university with a young lecturer played in the film by Ian Carmichael, who's clearly not suited to being a young lecturer at this sort of like snobbish university. So at first you think, is this good? Is this good? I don't know. At the time it was regarded, Kingsley Amis was as almost one of the angry young men.
Yes, exactly.
When British writers were starting to like critique the snobbery, hypocrisy, and class-based nature of British society and British politics. But Kingsley was never really an angry old man. He was too laconic and a bit too non-political. But when you watch the film, you could sort of see why people thought that, because towards the end, when Ian Carmichael, as a young lecturer, is asked to give a speech in front of the whole university, in front of all the top academics and their gowns and their mortarboards, etc. But he's had a drink or two before he does his speech. And his speech is supposed to be about how great history is. And he's absolutely plastered, and he's slurring and nearly falling over. And he starts criticizing British history in the way it's taught in universities. He says, Merry England, it was all murder and poverty and dictatorships. And the interesting, which is a very political thing to say, actually, if you said that nowadays at university, you would be in the wrong side of, well, we could be in the right side, but you would definitely cause controversy by saying that now.
Yes,
at an English university. You'd rather cheese off right wingers or you cheese off someone else.
Yeah.
And the reaction of the student audience watching this isn't to be embarrassed that this guy's drunk, isn't to be embarrassed this guy's criticizing the courses that they are doing, which will lead them to getting good degrees. They all start applauding. They think he's absolutely brilliant. And I think nowadays, if you transplanted the Carmichael character into a modern setting, saying the same things but wearing modern clothes, I think it'd be really controversial. And I sort of realized that Lucky Jim was part of that whole movement away from Britain being so class-based. And it's actually still a relevant film. And it still addresses issues that still cause problems now.
Yeah. It's because it'd be fair to say probably overall that actually Kingsley Amis's son was the more angry young writer.
Martin. Yeah, but and again in a sort of like not really political, and they both write from the point of view of people who feel quite comfortable in their own lives, whose disdain for things is based not on personal experience of hardship, but on
intellect.
And that's what undermines both the writing sometimes, in my humble opinion. But they're both great writers. I'm not trying to say they're not. But towards the end of the film, the 1957 black and white version of Lucky Jim, it ends up in a car chase as Ian Carmichael races to get to the railway station to see this girl who's going away that he actually loves, or is it the other way around? I can't remember. Girl like chasing him. It's one of the two things. But anyway, it's a car chase, and all the baddies are chasing them, and it's a sort of like farcical, freewheeling, cartoony car chase of a style that hadn't happened in British films before, in which in the 60s became quite normal, because What's New Pussycat, that Slade and Peter Sellers vehicle, 1965, which was a huge hit at the time with songs by Burt Bacharach. Tom Jones sang the theme tune. Well, that ends up with that has a couple of mammoth car chases in it, and that became a sort of swinging 60s theme that to show that things were getting freewheeling, people would get in cars and race about at top speed, and it sort of like ended up in Benny Hill with him chasing semi-clad women round fields on TV, and it's all part of that same spirit that began with Lucky Jim.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. That are you suggesting it's better that a writer should suffer for their art? I mean, from what you're saying,
that's an old argument. And I'm not suggesting that whatsoever, but when you write, you should be able to write so that your background doesn't come through. The writer should be able to put themselves sympathetically in anybody's position of any background, even when that background is completely different to them. It shouldn't show unless you want to advertise the fact that you're being honest by showing where you come from, which is a perfectly acceptable approach. But to just lord it up on high, like you were doing, like you were to be using a small car like we do, it's just not right in a novelist if they want to be truly brilliant. I mean, when you can't be judgmental, you can be judgmental, but you can't be judgmental. So The Great Gatsby is a great novel because even though it reveals The Great Gatsby to be not so great whatsoever, it's not. It hasn't got the tone of someone who's judging and looking down. It needs to be the attitude that whatever foibles the characters have got in your book, you share them as well.
Otherwise, you're a dilettante.
Exactamundo.
Where does that leave someone like Charles Dickens, though?
Completely different. Charles Dickens wasn't like any of those writers. My God,
no,
he was old school detail. He built up a picture of a society, one tiny character in one sentence at a time. Exactly. So you end up by getting the overall picture, and he was he was a social in favor of social
reformist. That's what he was. Yeah.
So he was actually political, but he built up a tapestry of what felt like real people, and then you got the impression from that overall picture of reality what the point of it was. He didn't tell you what the point was. He didn't write the book saying like we should like knock down the slums. That's not Charles Dickens at all. So Dickens was old-fashioned in the sense that he went for detail in a way that very few modern writers do. Although Thomas Pynchon, who's still alive, an American writer, he goes in for great detail, and you extrapolate the points by the accumulation of detail. And Dickens was like that, and that's not what Barton Amis or Kingsley Amis were about.
No. I mean, obviously, there's a socialist reformist zeal to a work, and we are soon to be into the season of A Christmas Carol, a piece that resonates every year against the backdrop of what has happened that year. It's the characterization of Scrooge within that. And
I do believe, and this is hot news, that Will Ferrell has done a musical film version of Scrooge.
Has he really?
which is coming out shortly.
If it's as good as the Muppet version, that's quite something.
Well, I'm a big Will Ferrell fan. I love old school, and I love what was his face, the fantastic TV news anchor. I always forget.
Yes, why can't neither of us suddenly remember his name now? He did two of those films, didn't he? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I thought the second one was rubbish, so I watched it again, and it was actually pretty funny.
Yeah. It'll come back to us eventually. In re-editing, we'll suddenly remember who the damn.
Well, no, the film's called Anchorman. The film's called Anchorman.
It was called Anchorman, the film, yeah. It was. Yeah. Now, Graham, I feel it's time before we finish for an interruption, which might be a contradiction in terms to interrupt when we're heading towards the finale, but there's always space for a charmer's interruption.
Well, I was interviewing Dave Hill of Slade, the guitar player, on the phone today for the Harrogate Advertiser, and he was an amazing bloke, 76, and yet he said, he understood everything I said. He was very, very thoughtful about everything. He says, the reason I do it is because I still get off the fun of it. I still get the buzz when I play live, which is amazing for a 76-year-old. So I said, Dave, it's been great talking to you. You're a credit to every rock and roller still standing. And he said to me, I'll take that, Graham.
Now, how many of the band are still in Slade?
One, Dave Hill.
It's Dave Hill who keeps it going.
Yeah.
He's not over the hill yet. So
no, well, there's loads of famous bands where when the original member or sometimes too.
I mean,
the ironic thing is that leads are. Yeah, sorry.
My understanding is that he still gets on extremely well with Noddy Holder. It's just Noddy doesn't want to do Slade stuff.
I asked him that, and he still has lunch on with Kingsley, and they're still good friends. But Noddy made it plain to him a long time ago that
a long time ago, wasn't it?
Play live with Slade ever again, and Dave said that was perfectly fine because you can understand it because touring's hard work, the traveling's hard work, a lot of waiting in hotels. He says it's hard work, but I still live on stage, which is why he still does it. But Slade are playing the Warehouse in Leeds on Thursday, December the 22nd. But ironically, while they're playing the Warehouse in Leeds on the 22nd December, a band called Slade UK, who are a tribute band, they're playing the following week in Leeds. So I told him that this tribute band were playing Leeds a week later, and he didn't seem to realise that. So
as long as he gets there first, then it's he'll have done the job. There'd be Slade and slaughtered by the following week, so that'll be fine. I mean, you've spoken of. I don't want to analyse your meetings again with Graham Gould, but there are musicians who just the love of performing doesn't desert them. And I mean, I used to have that policy of not wanting to see musicians technically past their best or performing. But as I've said before on this podcast, musicians are allowed to have different ages and to interpret their songs in different ways in different ages and play to an audience that also is aging alongside. It doesn't always make for a great concert. Don McLean's concert wasn't a particularly outstanding concert, but in its own way, the audience loved singing along to what was more like a kind of barroom version of American Pie. And I think it's great that Dave Lee still enjoys it. What, I've got his name right? Lee? It is Lee, isn't it? He still enjoys doing it, so why not do it, Graham? Nothing should stop. Hill, no need to retire.
Yeah.
Dave Hill. That's it, sorry. Yes, yeah. No need to retire, is there? Why should someone do that?
Of course not, and especially when they still make good money out of it anyway. Yeah. But he's got a good band. The band are all a bit younger and they're very experienced. Ironically, other band members have played in Mud and The Sweet and Rubettes, so it's almost like Slade are now a glam supergroup.
A glam, yeah, a granddad.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic Sub production.